The Demon Within. Chapter 8. I awake with a scream I wish stayed trapped in my lungs. It echoed through the room shortly, waking Star up. I screamed not because of pain or a nightmare, but because I knew what Curlia meant now. I grabbed my chest, pain ringing through my back as my wings formed, pushing me off my bed as quickly as I jumped off of it. Star shot up in bed as I run towards the door. Emma? She says, a little surprised, but also scared. I look at her, fear in my eyes, this gut feeling as strong as when I knew my death was coming. It's Ira! She's after Ira! I say, grabbing a set of clothes, and throwing half my clothes on my bed as I search for something comfortable before running out of the room and into the bathroom. I was terrified, but I wasn't going to go out in my PJs. I quickly got ready, not caring for my hair as I ran out the door, only glancing at Star as I passed her in the hall and raced down the stairs, allowing my wings to carry me down the steps. I glanced at the door, then at the cupboards before groaning, knowing Star would give me hell if I didn't eat before running off. What the hell is going on? Winter says with a low growl, shifting to look over the arm of the couch. I ignore him and grab a Pop-Tart, accidentally slamming the cupboard closed. She figured out Curlia's after Ira? How? I don't know, but... And I didn't hear another word before I was out the door, my wings flapping strongly behind me as I flew off. I glare through the bright sun on the horizon as I fly towards Ira's house. I flinch, just reaching her block before some sort of sense kicks in. It was probably 6 in the morning. Everyone was either asleep or at least should be. I landed slowly on her front lawn, my foot tapping quickly as I examined her house. It seemed untouched. There was no burst of panic from a family inside. It was calm. Thankfully, that meant Curlia wasn't here yet. Ira was safe. I stood there, tapping my foot anxiously, pacing up and down her walkway. I wanted to wake her up, but I'd wake up her whole family, and even then, is it worth it just to panic them all? As long as Curlia took some time to get here, she was safe. Safe to sleep as long as she needed to, and even then, I was here to protect her before Curlia could even attack her. My breath gets caught in my throat as I think back to last night. How I ran, how afraid I was of her. I shake my head, stomping my foot down to keep me moving. I didn't care this time. I didn't care at all. I was going to do my best to protect her, especially since she can't protect herself like we can. I see Star and Winter flying in the sky slowly. It must have been about 10 minutes before they got here. I sigh as she lands beside me. Winter looks annoyed, to say the least, as he glares at me. You haven't gotten her yet? Star says softly, yawning and rubbing her eyes. Maybe you aren't crazy. Winter mumbles, taking a few steps to be closer to us. I glare at him and go back to pacing. I mean, it's too early, but she's in danger, but the danger isn't here yet, but she's on her way, and it would be smart to get her now and prepare her, but... Okay, calm down, Star says softly, standing in front of me with calm eyes. I understand you're scared, and that's okay, but we can camp out here for a few hours if it makes you feel better. You've maybe gotten 4 hours of sleep. You died last night, and it doesn't matter if you were revived. She pauses, looking at me and then at Winter with a little confused expression, pausing mid-sentence before slowly starting again. How were you revived? I look towards the direction of our aunt's house, sighing with a weird, nervous smile as I look back towards Star. Well, apparently Auntie is an angel. And no offense to you, but her healing is a godsend. Pun intended. I say, snickering slightly, calming down once I start talking. Oh, wow, she mumbles, going quiet and looking around as if she was looking through her memories in her mind, trying to find clues or proof. Like, a pureblood? Winter says, his ears perking up as he changes into his half-human, half-wolf form. I nodded and he smiled softly. How interesting. I'm glad she was there to save you, Emma. I can't say I'm surprised. She always had that aura to her. Never knew it was a healing aura. Star laughed softly, and I couldn't help but smile. I missed her laughter so much. I missed hearing her in general, even if I was gone for just a week. I sighed, wanting to relax for a few, wanting to calm my fears. I look back at Ira's house and then slowly sit down. Yeah, I mumble in response to Star's sentence. I wish I didn't have to put her through that. Thank you, by the way, Winter, I say, getting his attention. Thank you for trying to warn me what that spell would do. I just should have tried something else to get it to you. He looks puzzled as he slowly sits down, Star joining him on the grass. but I didn't. He looks at me with sincerely guilty eyes. If she wasn't there to save you, your death would have been on my hands. He fixes his gaze on the ground. No, I say softly. I was fixed on that spell. Even with your scattered warning, I don't think it would have stopped me, to be honest. I was dead set on getting her out of my head, and if I knew that she would have been right there, then maybe I would have thought otherwise, but I didn't know, and I took that chance. I shudder as I remember the weakness I felt after I performed the spell. Star looked at me with a frown. It was easy to see she was disappointed that I didn't care more, but she couldn't find the words, especially since she was happy that I was safe. There was a calm silence that fell upon us as we sat there. I let my eyes wander to the sky, both nervous for the chance of Curlia striking at any moment, but also admiring the soft skies. It was cloudless right now, and the yellow from sunrise just started to fade. I felt my finger tapping anxiously, waiting for the hour or two to pass so we could get Ira. Save her. Save them. I looked down at my hands, my body shaking just as much despite everything seeming so calm. I need to save them. I felt my breathing pick up again, my throat feeling tight and my skin feeling uncomfortable as I remembered the burns. I gripped my pants tightly at the knees, trying to focus on my breathing. It was getting harder the more I tried. My throat seemed to argue with every intake of air. I could hear the start of a conversation between Winter and Star, but I couldn't make out anything they were saying. I couldn't hear anything over the sound of my breathing, the sound of my heart pounding in my chest and between my ears. Maybe if we use healing spells, we can nullify the pain of it, Winter mumbled, pulling out a piece of paper where he and Star then started drawing out symbols for a plan. I continued to breathe quickly, tears forming in my eyes as my chest screamed for more oxygen than it was getting. I turned away from them slightly, just seeming to get comfortable as I felt my eyes go black. I didn't want them to worry, but god damn it, I couldn't handle this. Camping out in front of our friend's house while she sat peacefully, unaware of the danger she may be in. I felt my teeth dig into each other as my jaw tightened. I stood up, glaring down at my shaking legs as I began to pace, unaware of Star and Winter, who tried to get my attention. Again, their voices were lost under the sound of my heartbeat. Star, Winter said, looking at Star with concern. I don't know, Star said softly, watching me pace back and forth. I got a good 30 steps in before changing into my full demon form, my tail quickly whipping side to side behind me as I paced, one foot in front of the other, my energy at least having some output as my mind raced. It was too free now. The thoughts Curlia planted inside me didn't have a barrier, but instead walls to bounce off of. There wasn't someone I could blame these thoughts on. I gulp, my throat painfully tight as each new step rattles my body. Maybe there never was, I mumble, thinking out loud, unaware as I ramble. Maybe Curlia was just bringing all of this to light, and I'm just crazy. I glare at the ground, muttering, just concerning Winter and Star as I talk. Emma, Star says, reaching a hand out slowly, drawing it back when she realized I was so lost in thought. It's so loud. I grumble at the noise in my head, angry thoughts towards myself, scared, fearful thoughts. The words she once screamed at me still lingered in the back of my mind, echoing. I'm not uncontrollable, though, I mumble, trying to convince myself, just like how I argued against her. Star, Winter says, quickly looking at her with his ears back. She's spiraling. Yeah, Star said softly, standing up. Hey, Emma, she said, her voice calm as she walked in front of me. I looked at her, unable to look away even when her expression turned to sadness, her hands softly grabbing my arms as my eyes stared into hers. You're gonna try to hole into the sidewalk if you continue like that, she said with a small chuckle, sighing softly when she got no reaction out of me. My eyes moved past her, focusing on Ira's house again with a pain in my chest. Do you want to fly? Maybe go for a walk around the block a few times? No! I flinch and shake my head. No. I don't want to be alone. I don't want to leave this spot because what if Curlia comes by and we're too far to save Ira? I take a step back from her. Or what if I go for a walk and she gets me again? I choke on tears, angry at myself for falling into my thoughts as the image of her burning me alive fills my mind. My vision blurred, my eyes only greeted with the sight of her standing over me. I don't want to die again. I shake my head, clenching my jaw and glaring through the image, unaware of how I was glaring at Star. I don't want to not be here. I need to save you guys. She calmly puts her hands on my arms again, slowly pulling me into a hug. Let's go for a walk, sis. Winter will be here to protect her for a few minutes. She glances at Winter as he smiles and nods at her. Will that help? But what if Curlia gets to Winter? Emma, Winter said sternly. I can protect myself and Ira for whatever few seconds it would take for you guys to return. I promise. Go for a walk with Star. You need it. I sigh as Star starts walking with me towards the sidewalk again, her arm gently on my back. I shove my hands into my pockets as my tail curls around my leg. A good few minutes pass of going up and down the sidewalk. We pass the house twice now, walking in silence as the thoughts stir in my mind. Star was walking calmly beside me, still having her arm against me or her hand on my shoulder, always letting me know that she was right there. Do you want to try and think out loud for me? Star said, looking at me. I don't have to respond if you don't want me to, but I want to know what's going on, and I just think thinking out loud could help us both. Think it's worth a try? I pause, biting my tongue, a little confused about where to start, if I should. If you want to keep walking in silence, I don't mind, but I think it would help. You're right. I mumble, trying to give her something instead of nothing. I wouldn't mind if you responded, but if you can't, don't worry about it. I chuckle, not knowing how I would respond to any of it myself. She continues to walk with me, letting me find the words. Ira is right, I mumble. I should talk to someone, try and get my thoughts out, but I don't have the time for that. Not with some crazy hellborn running around trying to kill us. And who knows what's to come after her if they're as dead set as she says they all are. I pause, wanting to get it out, make it stop festering. And I can't help but think Curlia didn't start any of the thoughts inside my head. Star looks at me confused, yet calm, almost understanding. I feel crazy. I chuckle and run my hand through my hair. I feel like Curlia only shone a light on the darkest thoughts I had. Like me being uncontrollable or a monster, or that I have too many powers and that all we're trying to do is useless. I yell, clenching my fists tightly in my pockets. And I hate thinking that maybe... I stop, calming down slightly with tears in my eyes. That maybe I'm just not okay. I mumble, trying to give myself the benefit of the doubt through words, trying not to call myself anything that would only make it worse. Emma. I slow down as she talks, wanting to focus on her words. As disheartening as it might be hearing this, knowing you can't blame her all for it, you're probably right. I've seen you go through so much, and even I have thoughts like that. Hell, I'm sure half, if not all of humanity does. And not because of an inner demon possessing them for stupid reasons. She waves her hands as she talks. But she looks back at me with a soft smile that quickly faded. Because the world is hard and unfair. It's pretty easy to think it's all for nothing. I nodded, starting to walk again before she stopped me. But I think it's okay. And once we finally catch a break, which I promise you will happen, we'll get therapy for it. Because we need it. You need it. She smiles and nudges me softly as I roll my eyes. We both needed it last year. She laughs softly at my words and nods. Yeah, we really did. I couldn't help but admire the brightness in her eyes as we reached the end of the block and slowly turned around. Emma. She pauses once again, looking at me with such reassuring, soft eyes. It's okay. I know, Star. No! I stop, looking at her confused as she comes over, hugging me softly. It's okay to be not okay, and I promise you we're gonna get the help we need. I feel my breath hitch in my throat as my tears fill my eyes. I blink them away, struggling as they start streaming down my face. We've just got to stick together until then. We can get through it together. No more running, okay? I nod weakly, choking on my tears. All right. She continued to hug me until the tears felt dry in my eyes. Ready to head back? I'm sure they'll be awake by now. I nod weakly, finally feeling a little less anxious but ready to go over and protect Ira. We walked over to the house slowly, letting a bit more time pass to let her wake up more. Winter, who was relaxing in his wolf form looking for spellbooks he had written down, changed back into his human form once he had seen us turn into the walkway. They're all awake, he said, smiling at us. Your hearing is pretty good, isn't it? Star said, smiling back at him, her face turning red slightly before she shook her head. Yeah, but Ira came out and said hi briefly. Apparently I scared her mom, so she had to come out and show that I wasn't wild. She only popped the door open, said my name. I smiled at her, said good morning, and then she went back inside. I chuckle and look at the door. That doesn't surprise me. Not everyone is used to a wolf just chilling on their front lawn. My chuckle turns into a small laugh as both he and Star roll their eyes. I felt my feet carry me towards the door, my laughter fading once I got closer, not sure of what to say to whoever opened the door. Hey, let me handle it, Star said quickly, walking up to me and noticing my hesitance as my hand hovered in front of the door. Star knocks on the door, strong yet calm knocks, and we could hear Ira run down the stairs towards the door. There was great happiness in her voice, small squeaks coming from her before she opened the door, pausing as she looked past Star and at me. I couldn't even manage to hide the fear on my face as I looked at her, scared for her life. Hey, Ira, Star says, trying to get her attention. Get ready, we've got some stuff to tell you about. I looked at Star, almost surprised at her strong demeanor as she spoke. I glanced back at Winter, who was smiling almost proudly at her. Ira continued to look at me, almost trying to analyze my expression before I turned away, pain littering my face as the thoughts swarmed back up to the surface. Okay, Ira said finally, looking at Star. She quickly turned around, grabbed her jacket, and slipped on her shoes, seeming to understand the severity of the moment. See you later, Mom, Ira said before closing the door behind her. What's up? I felt a weight pull me down as everyone's eyes went to me, while standing on her front lawn waiting for me to make a plan, to say something. I put my hands in my pockets, trying to ignore the sweat that covered my palms. I look at her house, my body shaking as I think back to the innocent people that lived inside, the innocent person standing in front of us. I looked at Ira, fear causing my eyes to turn black before I could even close them, my mind greeting me with an image of how innocent and pure everyone was. I clenched my jaw and looked at the ground, opening my eyes quickly once my mind starts turning those thoughts dark. The idea of Curlia burning them all alive as she did to me. No mercy, no humanity. Curlia. I choke on my words, her name feeling so violent through my throat. Curlia is hunting us all down, including you, I say, looking between them all. Winter and Star looked at Ira, who just snickered. If anyone tries to hurt you guys, I'll kill him, Ira said, smiling and pressing her fist into her palm. I snicker, trying to let myself feed off her fearlessness. Ira, Star says, conflicted between the fearlessness and aggression. Good to see someone isn't afraid here, Winter says slowly. I look at him, guilt in my expression as I see him look towards Star. He looked at her with an expression I couldn't read. Sadness? Fear? I sighed and took a step towards the sidewalk again. Should we go to the park, maybe? The trees there block a lot of the sky, and it's open if we still get ambushed, I say, looking between them all. There was hesitance between Star and Winter, interrupted by Ira running past me, smiling. Well, it sounds like a good idea to me, she said, turning and slightly running backwards, smiling at all of us. Let's not wait here for some crazy person. Let's go have some fun before she finds us. That's not... I sigh and smile back at her. All right. I walk alongside her, glancing back at Star and Winter, who took a moment to grab their notes before catching up to us. I still felt my body shaking as we walked slowly to the park. The lively neighborhood had plenty of trees along the sidewalk where I felt safe. The shadows gave some sense of security, and as Ira talked, I couldn't help but just stay silent, admiring the cheerful tones in her voice. But I looked up just to see her walking in front of us. There wasn't a smile on her face when her words finally rested. There was a stern yet determined frown, and I couldn't help but notice her clenched fists. My thoughts of her thinking this was all a joke came and went just as fast as I was left here looking confused when she turned around, a big bright smile on her face as she continued the conversation with Star and Winter. I felt myself lagging behind them, my gaze fixed back on the ground as I searched my mind for some ideas, some sort of plan. Star was so strong, Winter was relentless, Ira had the perfect joking front, and here I was, shaking with every step, barely being able to hold it together, and I couldn't help the cold shiver that ran through my spine as my feet walked off the pavement and onto the grass of the field attached to the park. This meant it was just one very open walk until we were at least safer, and they were all chatting away like nothing was wrong as we walked. Yet to me, everything felt like it was crumbling. My mind felt scattered and my body screamed in fear for what was to come. I gulped down the spit that seemed to try and drown me, my throat feeling tight, my head feeling light. My heart raced the more we were in the open. I bite down on my tongue. My tail curls tightly around my leg as I stare in anger down at the ground. I needed to be stronger than this. I looked up past my friends. We only had a good few more steps till we were in the shade of the trees near the park. And that's why we're working on this spell. Winter's voice seemed so determined as they talked. I weakly looked up at them, trying to keep my eyes on the skies, but also wanting to be part of the conversation. It may be a stretch, but if we can combine the right spells, it'll still kill her, but it just won't be painful. He looked at Star with a soft smile as she nodded, holding the paper for Ira to look at. Oh, that's pretty cool. I didn't know you could mix 2 spells together. Ira continued to lean over Star's arm to look at the paper. Well, it's more performing them at the same time, and by laying them on top of each other, it's easy to activate them together, which would technically connect them, thus technically mixing them together. So I looked up at Winter with an odd smile, and I looked at him with the same. It was a look of, I never knew you were such a nerd. At least Star's expression held love in her eyes. Mine was just confused and yet a little surprised. I'm just hoping if I make this spell here. He pointed to the paper. I couldn't see it, so I just settled for listening as I looked back up at the skies. Then it won't heal her. It'll just nullify the pain. Although if Star makes the spells, I'm not sure if it'll kill her since her healing magic runs just as strongly as the rest of hers. I don't want to be the one to have to do it, anyway. Winter sighs and puts his hand on her shoulder. That's why I'm going to do it. You don't need to have that on your conscience. He mumbles softly, looking into Star's eyes. Ira snickers, shaking her head as she continues to look at the paper. Then she glanced back at me with a goofy smile before she noticed my eyes. Her smile quickly faded as she moved away from Star, noticeably lingering, just to be at my side. Emma? I smiled at Ira, a weak smile as some part of me tried to reassure her that I was okay right now. She sighs and looks at Star and Winter. You've missed a lot of classes, and we've got finals around the corner. Are you going to be okay? I groan, another problem to weigh me down. I haven't thought about the days. One moment it's my birthday, then boom, 3 months fly by and we're in June. I think so, I say, rubbing the back of my neck. Once we get this sorted out, I'll study as much as I can. But I look back at Star and Winter, then back at Ira. Do you think you guys could be willing to help catch me up? Of course, Ira says, nudging my shoulders. There was a bit of relief that washed over me as the shadows from the trees finally fell on us. What kind of friends would we be if we didn't help you cram? We can't have you being left behind. Oh yeah, I haven't even thought about finals. They're this week, aren't they? Winter says, turning around. Star seemed to go pale as she turned too. Oh God, you're right! I haven't even studied for the science one. Ira... She spins her head around to face Ira, getting a response from her before she could even stop turning. Yeah, I'll help you all study. I am the best at science here, after all. I smiled softly at them, slowly sitting down in the shade. Tomorrow we can all set up a picnic to study. I shivered at her optimism. It didn't seem forced yet. The only thought running through my head was, what if we don't make it till tomorrow? I was unaware of my thoughts, thinking out loud as I rested my elbows on my knees. I then rested my head in the palms of my hands. I flinched looking at my palms. The soft red scarring on them seemed so odd to look at. It was much worse since Curlia started everything. We will, Winter says, his strong demeanor determined. Every one of us will, so get up and stop acting like a child, because we're going to need all of us to take her down. I looked up at him, feeling hopeless. I didn't have any plan, and my body still felt so fearful, the idea of her coming down to take me down again, her fire burning me again. Come on, you heard him, Ira says, grabbing my hands and pulling me up. Okay, I say, standing up and forcing a painful weak smile at them. What are we supposed to do? We're pretty much sitting ducks right now. I gesture to the open skies around us. Well, most of the plan I have right now involves you two either distracting Krylia or focusing on protecting Ira long enough that I can perform the spell. Ira and Star nod quickly. I can throw some fireballs. It won't be anything more than a distraction, though, Star says, looking at her hands and quickly wrapping her arms around herself. I just wish I knew why Ira was needed, I mumbled, looking at Ira, who was still smiling. Determination seemed to glow in her eyes. She probably used some oracle-based magic to figure out her best outcome, Winter says, waving his hand dismissively. Like what I used to figure out what was going on with you two. I nodded. Star seemed to frown before she looked up at the skies. Ira and Winter joined our gazes and followed the clouds, all of us focusing on a bird just to sigh and keep looking. I guess we kind of are sitting ducks, Star said softly. At least we have some sort of plan. Something is better than nothing, Winter said sternly. We stood there, waiting anxiously for what seemed like hours, which was probably only about an hour. After about 30 minutes of standing, we settled for sitting on the cool grass, the shadows giving some sense of safety. That was until I heard her laughter ringing in my ears. I cringed, a moment of pain washing through my body, until I noticed Star and Winter scramble to their feet. I felt my breath get caught in my throat as I realized I wasn't the only one hearing it. It wasn't in my head anymore. I slowly turned my head to see her standing on top of the playground, her wings gently coming behind her, but a portal fading below her feet. No matter how prepared we were, how sure we were of spotting her from the skies, she still found a way to sneak up on us. Well, look at this lovely welcome, she says, motioning her hands outwards at all of us. Winter glares at her, a snarl forming with the muscles in his face as his ears go back, almost flat against his head, and his hands close softly with his silver magic. I looked at Star, who looked angrier than ever. Her right eye, the only one I could see, was just as black as mine. The color of her eyes was a powerful royal blue and glowed with just as much power. Ira quickly stood up after them, standing beside Winter before he growled and stepped in front of her. I could feel my body shaking as I stared at Krylia. She was high above us, with that same vicious smell she left imprinted on my mind as she stood over me with those flames. Get up, Winter demanded, glancing at me quickly. Don't show her fear. His voice was anything but kind as his words were laced with a growl. Who to pick on first? She laughs, moving slowly across us with her eyes. I weakly and slowly stand up, my legs shaking violently underneath me before I stand between Star and Winter, yet still behind all of them. Winter? Already on it. Winter replied to Star as he started forming a ring of magic in the palm of his hand. I felt my breathing grow tighter in my chest as I saw her create a fireball in hers, twirling it around her fingers. Well, I guess there's only one real answer. Krylia spoke, a laugh mixed with her words as her stance shifted. Her fire sparked against her fingertips as it grew. The easy prey. Her voice was low as she jumped off the playset. Star quickly turned into her demon form to block Winter's magic from her view with her wings. My eyes widen as I notice hers on Ira, the fireball already moving away from her hands as she lifts to aim it. I glance at Star's fire, knowing she wouldn't be able to combat it. Maybe throw it off course if we were lucky, but when have we ever been? I bite down on my tongue and push through my shaking, my legs feeling crumbly beneath me as I throw myself towards Ira. I could see the reflection in Ira's eyes, that bright red magic flowing towards us. Emma! Star yelled, pulling Winter out of the way as the fireball hurled towards us. I quickly shift into my demon form, hoping to take most of the pain with my wings, curling them around me as I push Ira out of the way. I didn't even think about my footing, even if I did. As that fireball struck me, the fire engulfing my wings, my head was only filled with the thoughts of my death once again. I felt my feet drag against the ground as I tumbled head over heels beside Ira, who only landed on her side. I stifle a cry as I push myself to my hands and knees. Looking down at the ground, I could only see what seemed to be a reflection of myself on our aunt's hardwood floors. Burns over my face, blood dripping down my chin. And yet this time I knew the pain I was going to be in, and I had the magic to heal myself. I bite down harder, the taste of iron feeling all too familiar as I push myself up. The wind brushed against my wing, a burn mark slowly fading as I focused on healing it as my wing slowly fell to my sides. Wow, that works so much better than I thought it would. Too bad you don't know when to stay down. Curlia spat with a smirk. She walked towards us, closing the distance quickly with her confident strides. I stared into her eyes, unable to hide the fear that forced me to get back up. My body screaming to run, my legs shaking beneath me, my thoughts focused on her so strongly that I didn't even feel Ira get up behind me. "And what are you gonna do?" she said, glaring past me. I glance over my shoulder, stunned when I see Ira's eyes full of anger, her jaw tight, her fists strongly clenched at her sides. "Protect my friends," Ira said, stepping past me. I was stunned, but quickly shook my head as Ira ran towards Curlia. "Ira, no!" Star yelled, struggling to move. Her feet planted on the ground as her hands opened at her sides, yet no fireballs were formed. I opened my wings, the pain from the burn making me cringe, yet continue as the air burns me. I ran towards them, Ira already drawing back with perfect posture towards Curlia, and Curlia was already forming another bright fireball, drawing her hand back to throw a very fiery punch her way. I gasped as Curlia did nothing to dodge the hit, already swinging her fist towards Ira after she landed the punch. I stumble over my feet, grabbing Ira's arm to pull her away from Curlia, wincing in pain as she strikes my shoulder, the fire filling me with even more fear. "Ira!" I yell, scolding her as pain fills my body, her hellfire climbing through me before it disappears. "You can't do anything to her!" I felt my words get caught in my lungs as she pulled me down, a fireball whizzing past my head. I take another quick breath, pushing Ira back so she can gain a bit of distance as I form my own fireball to combat her next. Ira hesitantly stands there, looking at us before running back. I glanced back at her, keeping Curlia in my peripheral as I looked towards Star and Winter. Star was shaking, still hiding his magic with her wings, her hands visibly shaking beside herself. "Starine!" I choke on my words as Curlia's fireballs shoot towards me. I shot mine towards her, having them explode in front of us, smoke quickly filling my vision. I glance at Star to see her still shaking. "Starine!" I yell again, desperation in my voice. "You are always so weak." I hear Curlia's voice creep up my spine, her head right near mine as her fire starts lighting up the smoke before it seems to flow elsewhere. Her wings close the distance between us faster than I could even take notice of. I felt the heat of her fireball near my face before I shut my eyes. "Stop!" Star's voice screamed out, cracking slightly. I could see the blue of her magic even with my eyes closed, that familiar glow flying past my face, hitting Curlia and making her swerve away from me before she could land another hit. I gasped, my breath coming in sharply as fear struck through me and relief washed over me momentarily. I stumble away from where Curlia is as she lands on her feet with a smirk. "Now that is strength!" Curlia yells, raising her hand to motion towards Star. I look over at her as her stance widens, her feet strong on the ground and her magic sparking at her fingertips. Her magic, a bright fireball in each hand. "If I am to be killed by any magic here, it should be hers!" Her smile grew as she stepped towards us again, her wings opened. "And how divine it would be to be your first kill. To know I could haunt that mine forever." Her gaze was fixed on Star. The fire in Star's hands sparked violently as she seemed to struggle just to keep it at the size it was. Curlia stopped in her tracks with a frown, noticing the lack of a burn from Star's attack. "How pitiful." Her frown turned back into a grin as she glared at me. "Let's see how far she'll go with her power." My eyes widened as her wings went back, quickly readying herself for flight. I quickly started scrambling away, a run that started so fast I didn't go anywhere at first, my feet sliding on the grass below me, causing me to stumble forward momentarily, pushing myself off the ground with my hands just to try and gain a little bit of distance. I heard her wings move behind me. I felt the way the air pushed against me as she got closer. I closed my eyes tightly, forming a quick fireball in my hands. Powerful condensed magic in the form of a small ball glowed much brighter than its usual as it flickered in my hands. I felt my breath pulled from my lungs as I turned quickly, my eyes opening to aim only to be met with Curlia right there in front of me, her hand outstretched towards me. "Emma!" I could hear Star and Ira scream my name as her hand got closer. my fire quickly leaving my hands to strike the middle of her chest. A small cloud of smoke filled the space between us as she grabbed my neck, her grasp tight on my throat as she lifted me up. Her wings stayed open, as if they were a display of her power, the smoke seeming to make them sparkle as it cleared. I felt my feet leave the ground, my hands quickly going to her wrist, trying to pull myself up to fight the pain. But I was left speechless as I looked down at her. There was a burn near her neck, just above the collar of her shirt, yet no damage to it or the robe she wore. She chuckled as I stared, cringing in pain as her grip tightened, her nails digging into my neck. I flapped my wings, trying to lift myself, to do anything as my head started feeling light. Yet nothing worked. All I managed to do with my wings was pull away from her, only causing her to grip me tighter, her nails piercing my skin. I cry out in pain, my wings quickly falling back, my tail curling around my leg tightly. "Show me, Star! Show me your power!" she yells, moving me to her side, her arm outstretched, lifting me still off the ground with remarkable strength. "Show me the monster you really are!" I looked towards Star as tears streamed down her face. I could see Winter's ears twitching backwards, his tail tucked between his legs, the spell glowing brightly in his hands, almost complete but waiting for the right moment to perform it. Ira was standing behind them with anger in her eyes, no sense of fear, just anger. I felt my head get lighter, my grip on her hand fading, my vision getting darker. "Come on, Star, please, just fight her." "You monster," Star said, just loud enough for us to hear. Kalia's grip loosened slightly, letting me take a quick gasp of air before she held me tighter again after hearing me breathe. I look at Star, tears streaming down my face from the pain, yet staring, unblinking at her as she walks towards us, 2 bright fireballs blazing in her hands. "Do you see what you're doing? Orders or not, look at us!" She motions towards Ira and Winter. "We are kids, with little to no fighting experience, and you think even 4 of us can take you down? Someone who has probably been summoned 1,000,000 times!" I choke on a cry as her nails dig deeper into my neck at her words. I could see the muscles in her face twitch, anger and disgust in her wicked, uptight, and proud front. "Someone with years of age and experience on us?" Star continues to walk towards us. "You are truly sick!" She spat, glaring at Kalia. I could see fear in her eyes, but worry was lost as her other eye turned black, glowing just as brightly as her right. "Well then, fight me." Kalia chuckled, pulling me close just to throw me to the side, her nails leaving scratches in my neck, blood smearing down it. I landed my wings before I rolled, taking most of the impact there. I could hear them crack at least twice, but I wouldn't dare let that pain drag me down. I focused my magic straight towards the brakes, barely lifting myself off the grass just to watch it continue to unfold between Star and Kalia. "Go on, make the first move." Kalia took another step towards her. "Fight me." Kalia's voice was low as she stared her down. I could see Star's tail twitch as tears dried on her face. The heat of the fireball seemed to burn her hair as it fell over her shoulder. I saw Star's mouth open, words that couldn't reach my ears as the explosion of magic filled the air with noise and smoke. I felt the ground shake. I saw the dirt flying through the air and the flaps of wings. "You dirty little rat!" Kalia yelled. I saw her wing, a glimpse of it through the smoke as she waved it, trying to clear it. I saw the smoke light up with blue magic before even more dust and smoke were tossed into the air. My eyes widened, a smile lighting my pained expression. She wasn't fighting her, but being the perfect distraction, all while still not hurting Kalia. "Go, Star!" I yelled, choking on my words before shaking my head and smiling. I looked back at Winter, who was smiling oddly. He was proud of her, but this also made performing the spell impossible. "Emma!" Ira said, coming to my side and helping me up. "I'm okay." I nodded at Ira, dismissing her concern for me as I watched Star fly above the smoke and fire, shooting more fireballs downwards. I felt my body tense up as a ball of bright red magic shot upwards, barely missing Star's wings. I held my breath as I see Kalia's wings flapping under the smoke, moving it just so she could see. I could see her magic glowing underneath the smoke, the red making it glow brightly. "Starine!" I yell, my voice breaking as I scream, desperation flooding my throat. I could see the fireball she was forming. I could see Star's eyes. She knew. She could see it too. Fear laced every muscle in her face as her wings desperately tried to move her away from it, away from the smoke and fire that was to come. Star's wings weren't moving fast enough, and even Ira and Winter could see it. She wouldn't be able to dodge it. I could see tears forming once again as her wings steadied. Her hands outstretched in front of herself, and a bright blue fireball starting to form at her fingertips. I stand there fearing for her as I notice the familiarity of it all. Just like the night before I died. Her magic lashed out at the air, so uncontrolled, her tail twitching in that same robotic way, her eyes, the way they glowed, her tears streaming down her face. I could see her. Hell, I could hear her breathing heavy from here. Sharp intakes of air laced with pain. Winter's magic seemed to waver momentarily, the glow of it lowering slightly before I snapped my head around to look at him, the movement quickly getting his attention. I shook my head violently as his eyes widened, putting more magic back into the spell. I didn't want to draw attention to the spell by yelling at him or distracting Star as her magic built, but he needed to know that Star wasn't going to kill her. He still needed that spell ready. I knew how powerful Curlia's magic was, and it was no match for Star's no matter how much power she could put into it. We both looked back just to see the fireballs hurling towards each other, the dust settling around Curlia's magic just to cause an explosion in the air as the two balls of magic collide. I could hear Star scream, not one of pain, but surprise. I could also hear Curlia's laughter as she flew from the smoke, flying high above Star. The explosion was closer to Star, causing her wings to flap unorganized against the burst of wind, unable to move anywhere to avoid Curlia's next attack. I felt my wings tight behind me, the pain still flowing through them as I stretched them out, my body prepared for something I knew deep down I wasn't. "You are pitiful. The only act of power you had was nothing," Curlia yelled, her words laced with disappointment. "Good!" Star screamed back. "How is that for demons can't be good? How is that for a monster? If I were what you say I am, then I wouldn't have skipped a beat to put you in your place." "Starine, please," I mumbled to myself, praying that she could see the danger she's in being that high, being below her, leaving herself too open. "Winter, can you—" "No, not at this range," Winter quickly said, a harsh growl in his words, the completed spell ready in front of him. "But I didn't! Because I'm not a monster! We aren't monsters like you are!" Star screamed at Curlia, her voice cracking as she got louder. "Then let me show you what a real monster would do," Curlia said proudly, her wings opening behind her just to burst herself forwards. Her legs tight underneath her before she held her wings back, sharply flying through the air with her feet below, towards Star. Her bright red boots are a mimic of her glowing magic. "Starine!" Winter screamed, his voice almost animalistic as he took a few steps towards where they were. Curlia's boot made an impact with Star, sending a small shockwave through the air and sending Star plummeting down towards the ground. I bite down on my tongue, quickly flying towards her as she falls through the air, flying quickly past Winter, and my wings flapping stronger than ever as I watch her wings wave in the wind around her, her tail only thrashing against the wind with no control from her at all. "Now, Winter!" I yelled back at him, racing towards Star, grabbing her wing tightly just to pull her closer. I wrapped my wings around her tightly as my wings hugged the air, barely slowing me down before we reached the ground. I felt my feet slide against the grass, stumbling slightly, forcing myself to fall back, sliding on the grass painfully as I held her tight. "How is that for a monster?" Curlia yells, laughing as she slowly seems to float down towards the ground. I looked up to see her staring right at us, either oblivious or uncaring to the spell Winter was performing now that he was in the open. She stood between us, almost in the middle of everything. I felt tears drip off my face, tears I hadn't realized I was crying as I felt Star unmoving in my arms. I could see her breathing, feel her pulse through my tight hold, the only thing keeping me sitting here, holding her gently, stopping me from ripping Curlia to shreds. "That's enough!" Winter yells, his magic glowing brightly, only giving Curlia less than a second to look over at him, before the magic shot towards her. I looked past it all to see Ira running towards Curlia, her fist ready, her feet strongly propelling herself off the ground, moving almost as fast as Winter's magic, closing the distance between herself and Curlia. I heard him gasp as he finally saw Ira running towards her, unable to say anything, warn her or stop her as her fist made impact with Curlia. "Ira!" he yelled just as the magic hit Curlia with a bright flash of silver light. I watch as Ira stumbles backwards and Curlia's wings turn to dust behind her. I could see myself in her as if I was reliving my death, the pain I felt as the magic surged through my wings for the last time. I shook my head, watching her slowly smile, showing no hint of pain as she slowly shakes her head. "Oh, what a funny thing fate is," she said slowly, As I saw her tail and horn slowly fade, she looked at me, her smile turning to an evil grin. "I'll be seeing you soon, Emma." I couldn't help but notice Ira standing in fear. All of us were, as her body turned to dust. Another small flash of white light that was overcome by the red of her magic before nothing was left. We all stood there, all waiting, watching, praying not to see something go wrong, like we all anticipated her just reforming in front of us. But there wasn't anything. She was gone. Finally gone.